Well, good. Thanks, guys. Just before Clarko starts on the game for Thursday night, I just want to perhaps talk to you about, we won't appeal the Paul Curtis decision last night that was handed down from the AFL Tribunal. We were bitterly disappointed with the outcome of that. We believe that we put up a really good case for Paul to get off. We thought Paul acted in absolute the right manner in the way that he approached that contest, in firstly tackling the player. That's part of the game, and the opportunity to tackle was there. We thought that he tried to put in some things that we've teach our players around minimising the driving action forward. So from a technique point, we thought we put a good case forward how we tried to restrict the damage done to the player. We're disappointed that he received concussion. We hope he's recovering well, but 3 weeks we think was a really poor outcome, and unfortunately we won't appeal. We've had numerous conversations in the last 12, 13 hours since last night with legal counsel, 2 barristers, King's Counsel, really around whether we've got any grounds to appeal that. The avenue for us to challenge it is very, very fine. Becomes a legal discussion. This is a bigger picture around the state of the game that can be had at other times. But we play tomorrow night. The potential to have that hearing was 12 o'clock tomorrow. 0 to no chance of winning it. So we're disappointed that for our player that he's been tarnished with this. He had the best intentions of playing the game in the right spirit and not trying to hurt the player involved. So really disappointed with that. On looking after our people, we thought we put a good case forward for one of our players. Also on the back of that, we received a request from Channel 7 for tomorrow night's game for Kane Corns and Luke Hodge to come in and do a interview with our coach. On the back of some commentary that we feel has been, over my short time at the club, over nearly 2.5 years, there's been some real personal attacks on the club, vindictive attacks that we feel that have been unwarranted. We understand the role of the media and our role to work with the media to promote our game and to inform our members and stuff that's going on. But we believe some of the commentary from Kane, and particularly late early this week with a couple of our players, in Jai Simpkin and Harry Sheasel, overstepped the line. As I said, inappropriate, targeted, vindictive, bullying behaviour that we as a club won't stand for. We're open for balanced critique of our performances, but when it starts to overstep the line and become personal, it's my responsibility and the club's responsibility to look after our people. And so therefore, Channel 7, Luke Hodge and whoever else they'd like to present to have the conversation with Clarko is still open, but until we feel like it's a more respectful conversation and dialogue from Kane around our people and our club, we won't be engaging with him on any of his media channels. So I just wanted to inform that and say, we'll put a line in the sand on that. We'll look after our people and we won't be intimidated and bullied.
Just, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just on the second point of not having that interview, would you reach out to someone like Kane or the organisation, and if you did, what would you say to them?
Well, exactly what I said then. We've had conversations with Channel 7 that they are welcome as a broadcaster of the night, a key partner to be part of that. Come into the rooms, have open dialogue with our coach, but unfortunately Kane isn't welcome, but Luke Hodge and Nick Rewald or whoever else they'd like to send in are more than welcome. And for the reasons I just outlined, that would be the conversation that would be had with Kane. But we've just had this conversation the last short period of time. Whether I'll pick up the phone to have that with Kane is still to be determined.
So are you expecting an apology from him, or maybe just the way he changes his dialogue?
Well, that's up to Kane. I'm not holding my breath on an apology, by the way. We understand Kane's role within the media. It's created a lot of noise, and this is adding to it. We understand that, but it's important that we say enough's enough, and we won't be bullied on that stuff. Like we've got a responsibility to our people, to our players, that we stick up for them, and we think it's just crossed the line.
How have the players responded, particularly Harry, Sheasel, and the captain as well? Have you spoken to them?
Well, they're not aware. They've been training. They're not aware of this decision. But I've had dialogue with our players and received their feedback. They were disappointed with some of the commentary and feel like it's overstepped the mark. But this is not only that. This has gone on for, as I said, in my short time at the club. It's been a real targeted, vindictive attack on the North Melbourne Footy Club.
Just before we do, Clarko, have players specifically come to you in regards to the comments that have been made?
We've already spoken about that, so I'm not going to cover the issue again, so thanks for the question, but let's move on to the game, eh?
We'll just ask about the Tribunal case, at least from last night. There's been...
Same thing, Todd just addressed it.
You won't answer any questions?
Yeah, so we've got a game of footy. As harsh as it is and as disappointed we are with the outcome, we've got a game of footy we've got to play tomorrow night. And so nothing's going to change that. And we can, the debate has been going on for 2 or 3 days amongst the wider football community about whether it's just or unjust. Will he get suspended? Won't he get suspended? We now need to move on. The decision's been made by the club. We're not going to appeal. The decision's been made by the Tribunal that he's out of the 3 games. We'll replace him with another player, and we'll get on with the game of footy next or Thursday night, tomorrow, isn't it?
Do you put any extra emphasis on training and how to tackle following last night?
No. That's why we appealed the verdict in the first instance. So because we strongly believe that tackling is a legitimate part of the game, and so anyway. But let's move on to aspects of the game tomorrow night.
You spoke last week, obviously, the disappointment of the performance a week or so ago. What did you like, I guess, about the, obviously lost, but it seemed like a strong performance. What did you take out of that game?
Yeah, well, the last 3 quarters we outscored Port 11 goals to 7, which was really, really pleasing. But unfortunately, they'd put a margin in the contest in the back end of the first quarter where they kicked 4 quick goals that meant that we were playing catch up from that point in the game. So we're really pleased with our endeavour and application to get ourselves back into the contest, and we're right in the game. Particularly the last 15 minutes of the game, we just peppered the front half of the ground and just couldn't find a way to be able to put it through the sticks and apply some real scoreboard pressure to the Port Adelaide side. But in terms of a contest and giving ourselves a chance, we did that. But need to do it for 4 quarters. We did it for 3 last week, and it wasn't really, even the first quarter we were pretty good for 20 minutes, but then just fell away for a patch of the latter stages of that quarter, and that was enough for them to put the scoreboard margin on us that would prove very, very difficult to drag down. So we work on that again tomorrow night against the Bombers. Different opponent, different venue, but same sort of principles of what's required, and that's to be tough and hard at the footy, use the ball smartly when you've got it, and try and limit the opposition with what they can do when they've got the footy.
What adjustments do you have to make with Paul out of the side?
Well, he's been pretty good for us, so it's not an easy replacement. The way that he plays, we'll select our side this afternoon. As I said, there'll be another player that comes in to replace him, and we'll hopefully acquit ourselves well against the Bombers tomorrow night.
We're going to see George Wardlaw playing this week?
No, George got a pretty savage corky out of the game. He's been unable to train. He's pretty close, to be fair, but we don't think he's recovered fully to be able to play to the level that's required of tomorrow night. So he won't be playing tomorrow night, unfortunately.
Griffin Logue, I know there was no VFL game last weekend for him to respond in, but we're likely to see him recall?
We'll wait and see with selection. We're not going to reveal everything about our side right now, but hopefully whichever game he and Corey play in, we hopefully get some get some continuity with his footy now.
A lot of coaches have been speaking about the frustrations of the second tier competition, and I mentioned there that you didn't have a game per se last weekend. I'm sure you had a scratchy of some form, but is there frustration as a coach that there is no, like the second tier is a bit haphazard and you have buys and you don't have buys?
Yeah, I think there's some aspects that's, particularly because the second tier is usually got a fair contingent of your younger players. So if the senior group in the AFL level is playing 23 games and the second tier are playing 16 to 18 games, for the younger folk that's probably not a bad balance of the amount of footy played. This has been a particularly difficult start to the year because some sides have had 2 or 3 buys to this point in time and disrupted the later start and then a couple of buys before. There's a state game in there which is not usually that early in the season. So there's a whole heap of vagaries that have implicated it for this season. But yeah, you just got to deal with them when you can. Best part about this particular week for us is we've got some fresh players available to select, so we'll be accessing some of them for this week's game.
Can I just ask one on the feel of the club at the moment? There's plenty going on this week as well. In the playing group right now, how would you describe? Can this have an impact on the playing group this week, would you say?
Oh, well, only time will tell, but we're buoyed by confronting a pretty significant challenge against Port Adelaide last week on the road, and at quarter time it was looking pretty grave for us, but to fight back like we did and get ourselves back into the contest, particularly a disappointing effort on Good Friday against Carlton, the players responded in the right type of manner. It would have been very easy at quarter time to say, gee, this is a tough venue to play at, we're against a good opponent and they're already 5 goals up, this is going to be pretty tough, but we fought our way back into it and had a shot at goal late in the game that would have put us within 2 or 3 points of Port Adelaide, and with 2 or 3 minutes still left on the clock. So in terms of the playing group, sometimes especially as coaches, despite all the outside noise of what's going on and all these things that happen from time to time about tribunals and all sorts of things, unfortunate injuries, you've got to put all that aside and just say, okay, well, and the players do that pretty well amongst all clubs right around the competition, because they just know that worrying about things that they can't control there's no point doing it. Let's just get into the things that we can control, and that's a game of footy against Essendon tomorrow night. 23 blokes are going to run out there with North Melbourne jumpers on, and they're going to do their darndest to try and knock off the Bombers.
Is there a bit of a siege mentality when we read into that, and then the response of you guys as a club taking corners? You feel maybe a little bit hard done by the Tribunal?
No, I don't think so. I think there's we just want to make a call. We're prepared to protect our people, whether it was Archer at the Tribunal, Curtis at the Tribunal, whether it's some of the untoward and insensitive comments that we think have come from. We know that there's 2 games being played here. There's one that's on the field, and there's another game that's really played amongst the media off the field. And we know that we're ridiculed and critiqued from time to time. But there's also a point in time where empathy and compassion for the competitors on the field needs to be given pretty strong consideration, particularly by guys that have played the game at the top level and know better, because they've all been in exactly the same situation as all these players, I might add. So, there's a time where you do draw a line in the sand, but in terms of whether that sparks us into a us against the world mentality tomorrow night, I don't think so. We've got a job to do against Essendon, just like we tried to do against Port Adelaide last week, and I'd hope there'd be organic motivation for them to perform well, just because they want to be the best version of themselves that they can be.
Alastair, I realise it's not the greatest time to ask you this question, but Hawthorn have their 100-year centenary this weekend. Will you be going along?
Yeah, I'm going to go along. It's 100 years long period of time for a footy club, and there's a lot of great people that need to be acknowledged in the history of the Hawthorn Footy Club. North are going to have theirs later in the year. The Dogs celebrated theirs. 3 teams came into the competition. I want to go in particular because I want to pay my respects to John Kennedy Senior, who's my first coach here at the North Melbourne Footy Club. He was a significant mentor of mine when I came through the coaching path. He and Yabby Jeans were just fantastic for me, and in my view, they're the two most revered and decorated figures in the history of the Hawthorn Footy Club, notwithstanding the marvellous contributions that many players have made too. So I want to go there on Sunday and pay respects to Kanga and Yabby and all the others that have contributed so strongly to the rich history that Hawthorn has been able to create over a 100-year period.